This exhibition is very important to me. It's a passion project. It's something I've been working on only this year, 2018, but has been something I've given a lot of time to. And it is something that's important about thinking about how we think about 16th century women and about modern women and the interaction between the two and how the past and the present can talk to each other. So I think it gives a really important new interpretation of Bess, and it presents that through the prism of modern women.
I sort of thought about recreating some kind of like Tudor sort of pose and some kind of Tudor backdrop, but I really wanted them to sit separately away from the Tudor portraits so that there was a bit of a contrast, and I wanted to bring like a modern, the modern life into this amazing room because I thought it would look really good.
I think it's amazing. It's really lovely to... I've spent quite a lot of time on Radio 4 trying to reclaim kind of monstered women, as it were. Agrippina the Younger, is she the greatest emperor the Romans never had? Well, maybe, yeah, actually. But, the sources that we have obviously tell us that she's a multiple murderer, basically a poisoning serial killer. And it's like, maybe, but also maybe just a strong woman with opinions who didn't shut up, and that's exactly how I feel about Bess. It's like, I understand there are ways of construing behaviour that can make somebody seem absolutely monstrous, but there are other ways of rewriting that, and I think this is a really useful project because generally mouthy women do get derided historically as witches, as bitches, as crazy women. You shut them up in an asylum, you burn them at a stake. Well, I think maybe we're done with that.
I began the journey really in the archives as a historian. That's what I enjoy doing, so reading Bess of Hardwick's letters, the letters that she wrote and the letters that were written to her. And really I found a fascinating woman, rich facets of her personality that really surprised me. It wasn't the Bess that I was familiar with. I had read so many history books that had described her as proud, as furious, as overly masculine and overbearing. And the woman that popped out to me on the page was someone who was resourceful, someone who was kind, someone who was incredibly smart and shrewd. She had an active network of female friends at court. She wrote to senior political figures at court, the Lord Burleighs, the Lord Leicesters. She was someone who managed that social network to really influence the society in which she lived in.
Just the thought of someone not here anymore but still having that bad reputation that was just spread from lies, which a lot of women leaving abusive relationships, lies are spread about them. It's really empowering and a privilege to be a part of something that is righting a wrong reputation. It's just great.
The exhibition speaks to themes about how we talk about women and whether they're believed when they speak, but it also speaks to the parallels and continuities of women's experiences over time. And it was really important to us to include in this exhibition both household names, but also people from the local Derbyshire community. There are women pictured here who have lost children or who have suffered domestic abuse. And there are parallels with Bess's story in there too. So we wanted to make sure that we were connecting with Bess's story on multiple levels, and that an encounter with her through these women would be something that was moving and important.
I was in an abusive relationship for 6 years and didn't go for help anywhere, and it had a huge effect on my life really and the way I lived. And I just started speaking out one day. When you open up about something, it unlocks other people to open up, and I just ended up with all these women coming with their stories, and something needed to be done.
The story of Bess, and what she achieved in a time where women, were not landowners, they weren't wealthy, is amazing and it's extraordinary. And I think, as somebody who comes from a group which is normally quite sort of underprivileged, there's so many lessons that I can take from it. And I think especially we've seen in recent years, with the Me Too movement and the Time's Up movement, we see women are sort of pushing back, they're taking back the narrative. And in particular, I work with many Muslim women who feel that Muslim women so often are portrayed in very sort of binary terms, as either a threat stereotype or as either being oppressed. So I work with them to get their authentic voices heard, so that people can see that Muslim women are just like any other woman. They're human beings, and they're sort of complex and they're everyday. But what lessons I've taken from Bess is that the struggle to kind of get your voice heard as a woman and to have your narrative believed, it cuts across all ethnicities, race, culture, religion. It's a struggle that Bess, had to deal with 400, 500 years ago, and it's a struggle that women are still facing, in today's world. But Bess shows that through sheer determination, actually, you can overcome it.